Hello, hello. Hey, everyone. Very on time we started. And let's see, we see, already 30 people in the room. Hey, hey. So I'm Kelly, your moderator today. I'm joining from Berlin today. So where are you joining from? Just pop it in the chat so we all know. Are we spread across the world? I've seen William and Tiffany also already popped yours in the chat. Oh, more people from Berlin. Love it. Portugal. Some European presence here. Oh, I love it.
Lisbon is gorgeous. Jealous.
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Just.
Architecture, gorgeous.
Indiana. Wow. I love that. Like today we're talking about diversity, right? I really would love to see that we're joining from all around the world. This is amazing. British Columbia.
It's gorgeous. In the summer.
Nice. British Columbia. Never been, but it's on my list.
Oh, it's Banff. It's gorgeous.
William, sounds like you've traveled around the world already.
I have. I've been to every one of the continents. So, yeah.
Amazing. Someone joining you as well from Texas.
Yay.
Yay. Netherlands as well. Awesome.
Netherlands.
Well,
very cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you're all joining in. I would also slowly get started because we have some exciting conversations going to happen today. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to today's conversation. Does DEI stand a chance in 2025? What does the data say? And what to do about it? So, I'm Kelly Poon, Global GTM Enablement Lead at Leapsum, and I will be your moderator today. So glad that we are all here today because this topic is not just timely, it's also personal. It's really funny because we were just chatting about this before this starts, talking about the registration, how many people are in for this topic at this moment of time, because we're going to talk about priorities shifting, right? And full transparency, this webinar relatively compared to the others that we are doing now about performance, about review and all this, the traction is apparently lower. So seems like by action, by behavior, we also see a shift from a lot of priorities from in the people space. So, but for those who are all here, we can see that you're really committed to this topic. I hope you would also contribute to this conversation. And, this really speaks to how we maintain our integrity, connections, and momentum in this time of uncertainty. So welcome again for being here with us. I mean, we've all seen this in the last few years. The DEI really has gained some traction. Chatting with William earlier as well, some social movements definitely have contributed to it, getting the motion rolling in the business realm. But as we headed into 2025, a storm is rolling in. Budgets are tightening like heavy clouds. Cultural divides are cracking the sky, which is something that really hurts for me to see. We saw that some big names have simply shut the door, and across industry, we see initiatives that are being rebranded very subtly or simply completely even rolled back. So at Leapsum, we've also seen this reflected in the data. So we recently partnered with Opinion to survey over 1,000 HR decision makers globally for our 2025 HR Insights report. And the forecast is stark. We also going to look at some data today together in a second. But we all know that stepping indoor doesn't stop the weather, right? So the need for fairness, resilience, creativity, and belonging doesn't vanish in this turbulence time. So if anything, it really just pushes us to ask those sharper, more strategic questions, right? Are we leading with trust and courage or defaulting to safety and silence? What kind of work climates are we fostering right now with whatever levers that we do have control over right now, right? So today we are not only talking about what's at risk, I think we are quite clear about that. We're also exploring what's possible now, despite of the turbulence. So I'm really, really thrilled to have three brilliant voices in this space to guide us today. First of all, we'd like to welcome William. Thank you for being with us. William is the co-founder of Work Defined and editor-at-large at Recruiting Daily. With over 25 years in HR tech, he always brings in this data-driven lens, and that's why he's also known for being a trusted voice on a real-world DEI strategy. So what's colorful about William isn't just his experience, though. It's also the artwork surrounding him. So in case you're wondering, like I did earlier today, that's not a virtual background. He proved that. It's not a virtual background. He is a true artist on his own. So welcome and thank you for being with us today, William.
Thank
Nice
you,
to have
Kelly.
here. Thank you. And up next, how about Madison? Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Madison Butler. My pronouns are she, her. And I am the founder of the Employee Journey Blueprint. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about what it means to build equitable workspaces where people get to just be exactly who they are and thrive. I am passionate about making work suck less because I fundamentally believe if we have to spend most of our time there, it shouldn't be the worst thing we do all week and it shouldn't be the thing we talk about the most at therapy. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with y'all. Oh, and I'm supposed to add a fun fact. I am a part-time gym rat, so I lift heavy things and I put them down to deal with my mental health.
Whoa.
Wow. We
Love
see
it.
where, yeah, we need the balance. We need the balance.
At the
How about you,
flex.
Tiffany? And here we also have Tiffany with us. Tiffany.
Yes. So, hi everyone. I'm Tiffany. My pronouns are she, her. I'm Filipino American, but living in Europe. I've been here for 11 years and I'm actually calling you from my vacation. That's my fun fact. I've been working the last decade with startups that are really scaling from zero to exit. So it's been quite a journey. I've seen a lot in the DE&I space. I have a lot to say about it, and now is really the time to go even more in. So I'm really, really excited for today's talk.
Yeah, when we talked about being committed to this topic and really caring about this, I think Tiffany joining from her vacation speaks a lot to this. So thank you all again for being with us. Really exciting to kickstart very soon. Just want to also give everyone kind of a little bit of structure. Today we're going to dive into three key themes that are derived from our insight report. So first we'll look at how to sustain momentum while resources shrink. Unfortunately, is happening. Secondly, we will also talk about navigating division and rebuilding cohesion. And lastly, we also want to see how we can truly embed DEI into business strategy, not just like sidelining it. And a quick bit of housekeeping for you all. I see the chat is already busy, which is great. Feel free to use it. But I would also encourage you to use the Q&A tab to drop your questions there at any time, and feel free to also upvote others. We will take questions along the way. So for each theme, we will take a few questions. So not just at the end. So don't wait, don't hold back, just keep it coming. We also want to keep this a bit interactive kind of webinar. So we will have some polls along the way. So I would kind of direct you there when it's time, so we can also get some insights from you, because you all are for sure very deep into this topic as well in your day-to-day role. So before we jump in, I would also like to have a quick pulse check. So we talk about this weather analogy, right? So if DEI at your organization were a weather forecast, what would it be at the moment? So for the audience, DEI for you, what kind of weather, what kind of climate would you describe you are in right now? So you can drop in the chat using emojis or just a few words. Is it sunny? Is it stormy? Are you facing a cold front? Or are there rainbows? I see some rains already. Cloudy. I'm also curious for Madison, William, and Tiffany, how's it going for you? How would you describe the climate in your space right now? Who would like to share first?
I can jump in. So as a consultant, I'm working with a few companies right now, very different sizes. One is going to be bought, so it's really exciting times. I would say it's mixed, especially when you have companies that are scaling at such a pace. So it's really mixed on this side.
Thank you, Tiffany. How about Madison?
I would agree, as someone who also works with multiple organizations, I think for me, like I do have like a pretty strict requirement in order to work with me, you do have to be committed to this work. But that being said, I talked to tons of companies before we get to that point who want a quick fix. They want a PR, they want a PR campaign. They want some smoke and mirrors. And I think we've seen a lot of that since 2020, right? So many people actually never wanted to do this work. They felt that their hand was forced into this work. And I actually think there are a lot of companies who feel relief in not having to do it anymore. And as sad as that makes me, I would much prefer a company just not do it than pretend to do it.
100% agree. There's a quote from a James Bond movie, Spectre, that it's a guy talking to Bond. He says, "You're a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond." To me, that encapsulates basically what we're dealing with everything DEI related. We're in the middle of, and again, I think in America, I'm not sure it gets better until we see the next election, and depending on where that goes, it could go even further out. So it's madness. But I really, really like what Madison said. It's a lot of what I see as well is that people were felt forced. I shouldn't say that. Via social movements, like if you go from Me Too to Love is Love, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd dying, people felt like, okay, we have to do something. But it was really kind of a greenwashing or pride washing or however you'd like to DEI washing, if you will. And I don't think, even though they promoted people and put people in DEI positions, there was some budgets. I did see budget increases across those things, but I didn't see the commitment to what Madison's suggesting. If you're going to actually make substantial change dealing with any marginalized group or all marginalized groups, hopefully, you got to be all in, and you got to be all in for as long as it takes, and it never ends. And I think that's the hardest part for a lot of people, a lot of HR leaders to think about. It's like Kelly, you'll know this actually from your background. It's like an implementation software. We say go live, which is a made up term. There is no such thing as, I mean, there's a time in which we'll turn things on, but you should be doing the implementation and retraining and doing that never ends. That's DI from my perspective. And again, if we look just right now, it's June, it's Pride Month. Look at all the people that would colorize or rainbowize their logos last year or maybe 2 years ago, and look how many of them doing now. And again, that's for me, I hate it. I hated it even if you were really committed to it. I still hated it, but I really hated it for companies that just didn't believe in it. They didn't back it up with actions and budget and all those types of things.
Yeah, thank you, William and Madison, bringing this perspective. I think that's also, really could be the focus of today is instead of having the company feel forced to do all this, how we can actually show the value or the impact. And, to a certain extent, sometimes we need to do some hard negotiation with leaderships, but how we can actually do it, that in a way that we also believe in it, in a way that we can also bring this conversation onto their agenda. So I saw also a lot of resonations in the chat for sure, half sun, half cloudy, some rain for sure in the US, probably more like a hurricane right now, unfortunately. But I hope by the end of today, by the end of our conversation today, there could be a little more sunshine, maybe a few more rainbows. At least we feel like that. And we see how we can walk out with some actions that everyone can try to implement a bit out of this session. So yeah, without further ado, I love this start already some hit the conversation coming. Let's just look at the first theme of today. I think we will also see some stats on the screen in a second. Yes, I think it's coming in now. Can make it bigger if you need to see it. So these are some data that, as I said, we found out through our Lipsum in HR Insight research. 1 out of 3 HR leaders expect DEI budget cuts within the next 12 months, and 35% of them fearing losing all the progress they've made so far. It's a real heartache there. And I'm also just having that in mind. I'm curious from the audience, what is your first move looking at this resources strength, right? Or what would be if it's not hitting you yet? So if you look at the bottom right corner, you should see a little notification of the polls. And there you should be able to interact. And this is how we're going to do it throughout today. We will have some questions for you to share some insights. So have a look. Again, the question is, when DEI resources shrink, what's your first move, or what would be your first move? So go to the poll and submit your vote. While we are waiting some responses to come in from the audience, I would really love to kick off the conversation with you, William, because you have, over
Sure.
these 2 decades of experience in HR tech, and also I know you.
Stop saying how old I am. Stop, Kelly.
We talk about diversity.
At a certain
Diversity is
point, you
also
should stop talking about how old I am. No, I'm just kidding.
And what is also cool is you work with a lot of executives, right? So I'm curious, lately, how's things going? Like, what are you hearing from executives when it comes to cutting budget?
It's all productivity, especially if you dovetail AI into this conversation. You've basically polarized the American populace by the word diversity being kind of like masks were during COVID. If you wore a mask, you're a Democrat or you're a liberal. If you didn't wear a mask, you're a Republican or you're a conservative. So they're completely politicized whether or not you wore a mask or not, which is insane. And it's same thing with DEI. The word diversity in particular, it's polarization. And so I think one thing you have to do is either think of diversity and say, okay, you know what, I can either get on that fight, or I can think of another way of rebranding, like inclusion. You saw Sherm's kind of move towards inclusion as the word, as basically an overreaching or an overarching concept. I think belonging also gets us there. But it's basically, instead of pushing diversity, we get off of that because it's politicized, like completely politicized, and we start saying different things to get us to the same goal. And to those that actually care, Madison's customers and the like, and also Tiffany's customers, people that actually care, the words don't matter. It's the outcomes that matter. It's how do we get to that place where everyone feels like they're in a safe environment, they can thrive, they can actually be their best selves. I'm not a big believer in bring your whole self to work, because I got a really dark side to me. And I'm not sure that people want that at work. My background, my personality, but I do understand the concept. And I think the thing is solving the algebra for thrive. How do you solve like Madison's thrive and Tiffany, yours, mine? Our algebra is all different for how you thrive. And again, I'm gonna go really dark, really fast. I don't think any of this shit changes until millennials and Gen Z is in charge. I think boomers and Gen Z or Gen X have to die off for this actually to change. And I'm Gen X, so I'm talking about myself, because I think you have white male leaders that just don't want to give up power. They're going to just dig their heels in until the very last moment, retire and die, which is what it's going to, in my opinion, which is what it's going to take for us to actually make real progress, which is not perfect, but we live in an imperfect world. So that's that.
Yeah, definitely a hot take. In reality, they are not going to die like just in a second, right? We still have these executives to manage. We still have these organizations that we are all shaping and building. And I'm curious also to maybe hear from you, Madison, because I guess in real life, because we chatted about this with William before this, right? He's not working, in a company or for a particular leadership team. He's working with a lot of clients, but being a CPO, you have the whole organization responsible for, you have to have all this negotiation with your leadership teams. So what do you see, Madison, coming like as the risk of really scaling back this DEI initiatives way too far? How would you personally draw the line between adaptation and, sometimes you do have to compromise?
So I'm probably going to be like the outlier in a lot of this conversation. I do not mince words. I am not like a warm, fluffy girly pop. That's just not me. And so, I think that the problem here, right, is like there is no amount of data that makes people care about other people. And at the
100%.
end of the day, like that is what this work is. You have to actually care about the experiences of other people, their safety, and how they feel within your organization. And I can come to you with all of the reports, all of the data, all of the adaptations, and like that still can't get you there, because at the end of the day, this work is not as simple as a new system being implemented or a new policy. This work is every person, everyday work, and every single person has to be willing to have very hard conversations with themselves, especially in leadership. And unfortunately, in leadership, we have really big egos, and our egos are driving us. And so when you have these conversations in the mirror about like, where have I gone wrong? Where have I caused harm? Your ego steps right in and is like, no, you're good. You didn't do that. They're just being too sensitive. Oh, that's just politics. Oh, they're just a snowflake, whatever the new term is. And so for me, there is no compromise. There is no compromise on the experience that people have or the safety that people have. And I just think that you are woefully out of line to employ people and then not care about them. And I guess we could get into the idea that like they are probably your biggest cost center. So like it benefits to invest in them. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to caring about people. And I will be the first to say, like, yes, all of these words are politicized. However, politics inherently impact how we show up in the workplace based on your identity. And so I have to have conversations with people at the top that like, we have to have these conversations, like having conversations about trans women being in danger or immigrants being in danger. It shouldn't be something that we stray away from in the workplace, because these are people's everyday real lives and the things that they are bringing to work with them. And so for me, I am not, and it's why I have very strict rules to be able to work with me, because I do not believe in compromising on the safety of other people.
Love that, Madison. I see a lot of resonance also again in the chat with William in your take. I mean, we're going to move to that in the next section, right? About this very polarized, divided world. Sometimes even hard to even have a space to be just completely candor and then just, be, as Madison, you said, being really picky and just pick people or organization that really trust in the same vision that you're sharing. So thank you so much for bringing that. William, you would like to add something?
Quick thing to what Madison said. In my 30s, I learned that giving people feedback, just unsolicited feedback, didn't work. It was when they reached out and said, "Hey, Will, what do you think?" Their heart is open, their mind's open. It's like, I've been waiting for this moment. I think again, for the people that care, they might be at a place where they don't, they need help, and they reach out and they're open. It's time. Now you can do all kinds of cool stuff, but you can't force people, like Madison said, you can't force people to care. No matter how you try, no matter how you try to push the boulder uphill, you just can't. There's been reports for 30 years about the more diverse an organization, the more profitable, the better the performance. Like it's not a reporting issue or a data issue. It's a caring issue. I think that one of Madison's points is spot on. You can't force people to care.
Totally. I think that also warms a lot of hearts in the audience as well, just hearing this, because I think many of us also struggle in just, aligning on that baseline. And I'm curious, like Tiffany, based in Europe, working with European customers or clients for you, especially with companies that are scaling fast, right? We are talking about this William already set the frame very well. If they would reach out to you to work on this, they probably already care. So still, budget is tight. The macroeconomic situation is not looking great. What would be your advice, or what would be some small or smartest pivot that you think those scaling up company who actually cares can take to make it really meaningful without overcomplicating it, right? Without putting a lot of resources into that.
Yeah, so I really like the question, though I have to say I have worked with companies who have very different values. And I think, I look at my US colleagues and I see what are they doing, because I feel Europe is maybe 10 years behind on some things. So people just don't have the right semantics, or they don't understand like how it is in the US. So sometimes I go into companies and I'm the Trojan horse. They don't know that I do want to create a more inclusive environment. I don't tell them. I was maybe hired for performance management or something, but I bring in little tools, and that's what I want to say. I think a really great actionable step, especially for scaling companies, is to do it in bite size. Do a little experiments. Think like a product person. Where can we try something fast, fail fast, and find why we're failing? I really like finding people in the company who are allies, who believe in the work. So maybe the whole company doesn't agree on the work, but you will find allies. So that's my big tip.
Love that. Design thinking mindset, right? And then you do your prototype, you collect feedback, and then you iterate, and to have the co-creating basically help you to create a buy-in. Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that. I also saw one question in the Q&A board. Haven't read through it. Let's read it through together. From Jack. We have spoken about being all in and actually doing something instead of being seen to do something. What is the best way to assist with actual behavior changes in organizations? Is that repeated trainings? Is that action, making it visible, or just continuous training? Any other thoughts on this? William, I saw you.
Yeah, if you want to change behavior, you put money behind it. This has been proven from B.F. Skinner to here. It's real simple. You've got to actually put the programs in place. Kind of set the executives have to set the values and things like that, and set the mission and kind of a North Star, and then you just got to incentivize the behavior. Because I tell you what, you can change behavior. Even if someone's really core is really, really dark and bad, you can change behavior just by putting money behind it. So employees will do what's in their best interest to make money, which is fine. If that's what it takes, I'll pay people more money to get the behavior, to get the outcome. It's not perfect, and it's got a lot of, it can be destroyed a lot of different ways. I get it. I'd rather them just kind of come to it on their own without money. Yeah, I actually, when Tiffany was talking about doing pilots, my initial reaction was, yeah, that I see that working, but I also see that a lot of marginalized groups, the progress that we've made over 5 years, let's say, has regressed so much that the people that are marginalized, they don't want pilots. They're tired of pilots. Like, what's the pilot about? What's the pilot going to prove that a company-wide initiative isn't going to prove? But she's talking specifically like, hey, let's land and expand. Let's get in, let's do something, and then prove it up and go, which is actually super smart. My only difficulty is I'm not sure the audience has the patience for slow, if that makes sense.
Mhm. I like that you say that, because I don't agree that it's slow. Because for me, when pilots work and you have really allies, it's amazing. I think the types of companies we've both worked at are probably quite different in different landscapes. And something you said, it activates something in me, because I don't always believe in throwing money at something. something? How authentic can that be, actually, to really change a behavior? And I want to talk about a company actually in the US called Snapchat. And a friend of mine is doing something there called the Forum. And it's a ritual started by the execs where people sit down in a circle and just hear each other throughout the day. It can be about an important topic. It could be about a conflict. And for me, I love giving the human aspect to it for people to understand why we're doing this change. And I think we'll get more into the stats about how, how to do that. But don't forget the human aspect, not just the money, and make rituals that actually matter.
Love that. Already love this debate going on. Incentivize or more value human-driven approach, right? Jack, hope that gives you some perspective into your questions as well. As we have really nice discussion, I would also like to move on to the next theme, because that theme speaks really dear to my heart. It's about navigating divisions and rebuilding cohesions. Yeah, we already already opened the whole conversation about this polarization. We also saw that from the reports that a lot of, like more than 75% of HR leaders also say that the workplace division actually limit their ability to drive business impact. And again, if you look at the number, it's definitely rise even further in the US, going over 80%. Political tension in the US is there every day, we know. There are a lot of hard conversations that people have to take, like Madison said. I'm also really curious because Madison, I know you often speaks on designing psychologically safe spaces and being unapologetically human at work. So what does real psychological safety look like when polarization runs really high in the workplace? Really curious about this.
So I think there's two sides to that, right? Like, so when I teach psychological safety, what I'm really trying to get across is the thing that transcends age, title, how much you make is the fact that the human experience is deeply messy. It is a deeply messy thing, and it doesn't get less messy. And I think during COVID, that was really the first time that it felt like collectively we're experiencing the same mess at the same time. And we all saw how that impacted our ability to show up at work. And so when you take a microscope to that, there's a lot of mess that impacts us at the individual level, right? Whether it is a divorce, a sick child, addiction, money problems, all of these things impact who we are at work. Knowing that I cannot be my best self every single day, it's not possible because I bring all of that to work with me. Work is not the center of my universe. It is the thing that sustains the rest of my universe. And so psychological safety for me is allowing people to experience the human mess without it being at the detriment to their job, which also means being able to show up fully in their identity, regardless of who it offends, regardless of who has a problem with it. And that brings me to the second point. In polarization, the thing I teach all the time is you are welcome to be bothered by someone, but you have to know that it is your problem. It is not their problem to fix. People's identities are not up for debate. You don't get to say, I don't believe in this thing. One of the examples I often use is I'm an atheist, right? But I've never come to work or to any event and told someone that I don't believe in their religion because I don't believe in it. Take every identity the same way. You don't have to go out and do it yourself. You just have to do the bare minimum of respecting people for exactly who they are. And that's it. So when I talk psychological safety, it is that. And so when we talk about polarization, so much of it is, sorry, my dog is sprinting into the room. So much of it is the idea that, well, I don't believe in this thing or I don't understand this thing. And that's fine. There are tons of things in the world that I don't understand, but it doesn't mean that I say they don't exist or that they're bad or that they're wrong. And so for me, that is the biggest piece of psychological safety is that people do not have to lock parts of themselves away in order to feel like they can grow or thrive or be worthy of a paycheck.
I really love that. I think this embracing, this that we are not perfect and it's totally fine to even sometimes we took a stand that are different from many other people. I think embracing it also help de-armor the people, right? Sometimes we just put on this defense system because we felt like the others thinks I'm wrong. And that's why I have to be right. So I think your approach, how you are framing it is really beautiful because you're basically embracing them And I think that would just naturally de-armor the whole conversations or individuals in this conversation. Tiffany, William, any thoughts on that as well? Because, I think it's a really, not only on a workplace level, on a societal level, but just thinking about in companies, in organizations, how we can tackle this.
Well, I love that we're bringing the human aspect. And I think one thing that I like to guide with is be curious. You never know what you're going to learn about someone, about a culture, or about different ways of communication. So I really like to set up moments, maybe it's offsites, where people get to know the why. They get to be curious. They get to understand the culture more of the other. Um, for example, when someone is celebrating Ramadan, you know, I remember there was this conflict of things not getting done at the right pace. And then they had a real conversation with this person celebrating Ramadan, and they understood this person's not eating for like, I don't know, a long time. And it's just, they're functioning a different way. So I think when there's that clear understanding and that curiosity, it brings such a special moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say ego and the human's capacity to kind of try to make sense of the world. You start. There used to be this phrase that people use. I have strong beliefs, loosely held, and the whole idea of loosely held is I'll listen to Madison and she'll chip away at something that I thought I knew, and make it better. And I think I wouldn't say lost the ability. I think we've diminished the importance of listening to conflicting ideas. Ideas that, well, we have a worldview and it makes sense to us, and like we're locked into our worldview, and someone else has a different worldview, and all of a sudden it's hard to then put that into our brain and make that reconcile. And so I think a lot of folks that get locked in to this whatever worldview, and they don't edit it. And you should look at your worldview, in my opinion. This is me speaking now. You should look at a worldview and write it in pencil, so that you're always kind of, or a Wikipedia page, you're always editing it. You're always adding in new stuff and letting some of the old stuff behind. And I think that dialogue that both Tiffany and Madison have talked about is like so important, to be able to just go, okay, what do I not know? Like a lot of things. What was it Einstein that said, the older I got, the more I learned how much I didn't know, or whatever the bit is. Same for all of us, no different. So yeah, I think finding a way to change your worldview and edit it, micro edits along the way when you talk to somebody that challenges your worldview, and then you're like, yeah, you know what, you're right, which is, I think, difficult for leaders, especially because of what all of us have said about ego.
Yeah, William, you just reminded me of a game called Take Off Your Glasses, which is, actually many people see culture as the glasses you're wearing. You don't know that you're looking through the world in these glasses because you have them on.
That.
So there's actually this game where we say, just take off your glasses for a moment and then lead with curiosity. It's such a fun game.
Love it. Madison, I
And
saw
I think,
you also wanted to ask something.
yeah, no, it was really to follow up on, William's point. Is one of the things I tell my clients regularly. It's like the best thing you can do is expand where you receive your information from. Not necessarily because you'll agree with it, but it is so easy on the internet to get locked in this like echo chamber of your own thoughts, right? Like if I Google something and William Google something, we're gonna have completely different Google searches, because Google, the algorithm is set to look for me. And so in that, I spend a lot of time reading things that I don't agree with, reading information that comes from people who I'm not familiar with, and learning about cultures that are not my own and people who I may never meet, because it benefits me to understand them. And it is not their job to teach me about themselves. I do not ask people to do emotional labor for free. And so if you leave with anything, it's get yourself off of your Facebook feed and like do some real information searching and read some things that make you pause, even make you uncomfortable. Like, let yourself be uncomfortable. So much of this work is uncomfortable, and it should be. And it's okay to feel that.
Yeah. And I love it. Even just like building in with what Tiffany shared earlier about this, your friends working in Snapchat, having this forum. What if, once a while you just have this question? I love William's question. What do I not know? Right. And then you have a forum, you have the workforce to just share about this, have the leadership to share about this, to show vulnerability. I think that would be something really interesting and fun. I'm going to bring this to Lipsummer. Let's see. I will report back if we're doing this.
Kelly, last thing is tied to what we're all saying is humility. So the opposite side or part of ego is being humble and being able to recognize in yourself, like, again, I don't know it all, which is very difficult for executives, especially at the C-suite, because they're expected to know it all. And in some cases, they think they know it all, which is terrible. But the idea that you're free enough to then say, yeah, you know what, I don't know it all, and I'm not supposed to know it all. And oh, by the way, I'm humble enough to then say, okay, what should I be learning? What should I be talking? Like I love CEOs. I have run into a couple of them in our space that are like that. Like they live their life that way, and their companies are thriving because they've taken their ego and humility to such a level and just said, hey, listen, I run the company, check. However, that doesn't mean that I have all the great ideas. It doesn't mean that I know everything. And like they've explicitly, I'm thinking of Tony Jamose at Oyster. Specifically, he's said that to his entire employee base. Like it's crazy, but humility. There's a piece of this it's that humility plays a part in. I don't know exactly where and how, but I know humility is important.
Yeah. Thank you, William. I think that's kind of weighed very well into our last theme, which is, business term is how we can reframe this into the business imperative. But what I hear so far in this whole conversation, we're exactly talking about this, right? DE&I not just being an acronym, not being a label, not being a program, but is in the heart of whatever we do, because we care, because the leadership also care, but how we can actually build this in while the business at the same times are looking at, performance. They have all these other things that they need to, what William, you mentioned, you put money behind it. They put money behind other stuff, right? So we, in the report, we already saw like HR leaders really raising concern about, if we keep doing this way, turnover, engagement, performance will also reduce. We know that, but in a very short-sighted terms, they don't see it. So I just really want to see, maybe we hear from Tiffany, because I don't know, we will listen to William and Madison in a second from the US. I think there's also a little bit different dynamics here. From the Europe lens, what has worked really well when you work with all these different companies when it comes to really surfacing this or reframing this to make it so essential that the leaders cannot really ignore anymore?
Yeah. Well, there was one case where I said, hey, they're doing this actually in Silicon Valley. Don't you want to try? So that has actually worked.
All these successful companies over here are doing it,
Look.
but you're not.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. The European landscape, they love to kind of emulate what they see in Silicon Valley. It's true. So I really am, because I work mostly with startups, experiments work the best for me. And I think it's really storytelling. So I have something called the head, heart, and hands method. So the head is really, I want to back this by data. I want to share, if it's, let's say, I don't know, the NPS score goes down from people with diverse backgrounds in the company. So I want to look at that data over time. I want to kind of predict maybe what this could mean, also what this impacts, what business goals this impacts. And then I want to come up with a vulnerable moment, something around, something that can have the executive understand, like, hey, okay, this is a real person. This is what's happening. This is the feeling in the room. Sometimes when you walk into a room in a company, something is off. I usually get called in to like dissect that. So I talk about the feeling in the room, the unspoken, the people who don't talk. Why do we hear less voices? And then I talk about an actionable step, the experiments, and a practical tool. And I show them how easy it is, how much money they will save if we don't lose this person, for example. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah, I love shifting from how much money you want to save by the source. You look at if you actually return talents, how much money you can save by the result. So really love that framing as well. How about Madison? Like, again, just looking to you as the people leaders, I think a lot of people in this room, they are also in a similar position. How can people leaders in general just keep this topic, keep doing this, as we said, is not a campaign that you just want to wave your flag, but it's a constant doing. But how to make this visible and how to make sure this is valued across the company? What would be your take on that?
Well, I think it's important to note, like, this work can't just be HR's problem. Like, it can't be recruiting's problem. It can't be just ERG's. Like, this work has to be a functional pillar of your business. It has to be built into the foundation of your business. Otherwise, it doesn't work, right? It just becomes a Band-Aid. It becomes a program that goes somewhere to die when revenue is bad. So I think there's that, right? But the conversations that I'm constantly having is, at the end of the day, people come here to work. And if they're coming here to work, it would probably benefit us to put them in a position to do their best work. And people do their best work when they feel safe, seen, and supported. And if we force people into boxes that require them to code switch, where they're spending their entire day trying to put on their phone voice and making sure they're smiling hard enough and making sure that they're not doing anything to fall into a stereotype and doing nothing to offend someone based on their identity, how can I also expect them to be putting 100% to their job when they're putting 50% into pretending they're someone they're not? And so those are the conversations I'm having, is like, if you truly want to see people perform, let them just be. Let them exist as exactly who they are, whoever they need to be, knowing that whoever they need to be today might be different than who they need to be tomorrow, and give them the space to be exactly that person. But the foundational understanding of that has to be built into your business. It has to be built into your policies, your processes, your management training. Because if we don't train managers to understand this, they're going to say, well, that person's not a high performer. When in actuality, what we should be questioning is, why is this person not performing? Have I given them all the tools? If I have given them all the tools, what is the outside factor? Because oftentimes we fall into this, is it a skill or a will problem? And it's actually neither. It's like a fight, freeze, fawn problem. Nobody can exist and thrive when they're living in fight or flight. And so those are the conversations I'm having. Like, if you truly want people to perform, take them out of fight or flight and let them actually thrive.
Love it, love it. Just raise this also to the multiplier level, the managers, and this not even the terms of, we talk about performance management. You're not managing performance, you're enabling performance, and really to look at more from an enabler coaching perspective. Really love it. William, back to you.
Yeah, actually, I'm curious to get Madison's take on, because I love her take on allowing people to be. Is there a dotted line or even implicit or explicit way to connect that to outcomes, like business outcomes? Like, is that a conversation that you're having with clients in terms of, okay, let's like redo the entire situation here again, get them out of fight or flight, like all those things that you said, and let the person be and create a thriving environment around them, and hope that they can thrive. But do you explicitly or implicitly tie that to whatever they're doing, the business outcomes of whatever they're doing? Do you find yourself in those conversations?
So
I don't have the
yes,
answer,
you're gonna
by
hate
the
my
way.
response, maybe.
No, I'm not.
No, so
I'm
and I know,
learning.
and I'm not the only practitioner who leads with this. I refuse to talk about the business case of creating safety for people. I refuse
Oh,
to
no.
tie safety to a bottom line number.
No. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I'm not talking about business case.
No, you're
I'm talking about the let's just say, what are the KPIs for the business? So like whatever they're being measured on, whatever that may be, whatever that is, profit, revenue. Let's say they're in sales and they're carrying a bag and they have a quota. You're creating the environment for them to be, which is, I believe, absolutely correct. Do you have conversations with leaders around, okay, here's the importance of one, here's how we can tie it to two?
Yes. And then in terms of like business KPIs, I really require pretty much all of my clients to do engagement, and it has to be third party, anonymous, and aggregate, so that they are measuring themselves on their own progress. Because I think it's really easy, again, to say that you're having these conversations and you're doing it and then not hold yourself accountable to those same KPIs. I think a lot of people love to like say they're doing the work, but then when Joe Bob, who is a manager and he's been there 12 years, is really bad at it. He's really bad at
Yeah.
creating safe environments. We don't let him go because he's been here 12 years. And so for me, that those KPIs are actually even more important, is how are people actually feeling when we say we're doing this work?
Great. William, you just basically asked the question I wanted to ask you is, what's the performance impact story that you can actually tell, all this executive leadership? And from your own experience, what do you think that lend the best when it comes to this kind of conversation with executives?
Question for me?
Yes,
Or are you
William, sorry.
guys can?
For William.
Again, I think if we're having a conversation with executives of the business case, as Madison said, we've already lost. Like, again, it's not in their heart. They're trying to prove it to them. And if you're in a prove it phase, you just need to kind of hit pause and move on to the next company. I mean, I think it's hard to, again, it depends on the leader. Like it depends on their heart. It depends on a lot of things like that. But it's going to be very difficult if they start, like Madison said, if they start with it's the business case for safety or belonging or whatever. Like if they start there, that's not a good client. That's not a person you should talk to right now. They need to go and like grow up or change or morph or adopt or do whatever to get to the next place, evolve, some would say. But I don't think, like I use, okay, I'll just say it as it is. I use cursing as a filter, right? So when I get on a call with a prospect or a customer, I curse. I won't do it here just because I want to be respectful of the audience. However, on my dime, when I'm talking to somebody, I will curse. If they curl up in a ball or have a problem, that I automatically know that's not somebody I want in my sphere. That's not somebody that's going to be able to handle me. So, having a filter to then understand how you filter people in or filter people out, I think we need to do that with leaders. What are those words that they say that kind of already mean what they don't get it. When I ran an ad agency, which I did for about a decade, the words were fast, easy, and cheap. If ever a prospect said fast, easy, or cheap, I automatically said, you know what, we're good. This is a great call. Let's catch up whenever you stop using the words fast, easy, and cheap and realize that the work we do is valuable. Click, and I just hang up. So that it's a triggering word, but it's basically an indicator that they didn't value the work. And it's like, I don't have time to like teach you how to value work.
Yeah.
And so you look for those words,
Yeah.
and there's words in our space that Tiffany and Madison probably hear on a daily basis from leaders. And it's like, just stop talking. Like, I already know where you're at. Moving on.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, William. We are actually approaching towards the end of this hour, which was really amazing conversation. I'm really enjoying it. I don't want it to end personally. But let's take the one last question from the audience, because I saw one question that got 3 upvotes. We take this one and then we can wrap this up. So the question was about, we also haven't yeah, I think let me just read it out. Equity and inclusion can feel threatening to those in privileged roles, as it often involves sharing power. While redistribution sounds fair in theory, it can trigger fear. Feels like I'm losing something. How can we address this fear to build genuine support? So this ally that Tiffany was also mentioning, this fear that I heard from Madison and William is more like kind of out of the conversation a bit. I just wonder, how would you address this? Any of you would like to take this?
I'll just say shortly, head on, really direct. What are you afraid about? And I have had those conversations too. Like, what are you afraid about? And I think it will be a process of this person in privilege allowing themselves to lose the power. And it'll be a painful process, and they need to know that. It's not going to be easy. And that's what I can say. It's not easy. I think it'll take also coaching from many different sides, and also for them to take off their glasses, but let them know it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. If you're really here for it, if you're really ready for the innovation in this company, I want you to lose control. And maybe just for a week, give this responsibility away. See how that feels.
Great, Tiffany. All right, looking at the time, thank you so much, everyone, again. Also for the audience, for this engagement, I would invite you to also take a moment to think about what would be, one thought that you want to chew a bit more on after this, or one action you already want to take after this conversation. Feel free to pop it in the chat. Once again, big thank you to all our brilliant panelists. I really enjoyed this so much. Thank you for taking time. And yeah, really enjoying this conversation. So for those of you who are in the audience who would like to also look deeper into the research report that we have been pulling some stacks from, also there will be a link that you can download the full report, because there's consists of insights that are also more actionable on other topics as well. For example, the gap between AI ambitions and employee readiness, in general, how HR strategic role is evolving and so on. So if you're interested to have a deeper look, feel free to download it. The link is there now. And in case you want to also learn a bit more about Lipsum in general, our platform, there will be a poll also about that. So you can also give a hand raise there, or just answer that poll. So we will have someone to follow up with you. Thank you so much. Any last words from our amazing panelists?
Stay curious.
I think here's the funny thing. So if we were to go back and analyze who talked the most during this webinar, I would venture to say it would be me. And some of that's because I'm verbose. I don't get to the point quickly. It's just, that's a cultural thing for me. Put that aside. However, the other is it's a white male issue that they just don't fucking listen. I'm fucking 93% UK DNA. So like it is what it is. However, I think for things to change, we've talked about ego and humility and a lot of cool things. I think white men coming to the conclusion that they just need to shut up and fucking listen. Period. Hard stop.
Madison?
Mine would be let yourself be uncomfortable. This work should be uncomfortable regardless of the identities you hold, because unpacking your own stuff is hard, and it should be hard, right? You shouldn't feel good about everything, but don't hate the past versions of you that have caused harm either, because they were simply doing what they could do at the time with what they had in their toolbox. So give that version a hug and appreciate the growth that you've had, but don't run from that version, because when we think about our authentic selves, that's part of you too, and that's okay. You are simply a human who will do good things and bad things forever, but will never acknowledge those things if we're unwilling to be uncomfortable.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. I think Anisha wrapped it very well. This is the most refreshing DEI webinar I've been to ages. So thank you everyone for that. Thank you, Anisha, as well. Have a good rest of the day, and let's get into this. Wait, you up for doing this? Let's
No,
just be
Shane, it's-
ourselves.
Must steal that. Absolutely.